All right, welcome back to another episode of the Sports Den, the New Mexican's weekly sports podcast. I'm the New Mexican sports editor, Will Weber, as always, joined by my esteemed and decorated colleague, James Barron. James, this is the start of a huge week for us. It's May. Not only is it Mother's Day this weekend, which I just forgot about until this morning. We also have state tennis starts Wednesday. We have softball starts Wednesday. The high school baseball opening round tournament is this weekend. Small school track, where St. Mike's is looking to build upon its dynasty, is this weekend. Then next Monday and Tuesday, we have golf. We have the second wave of softball and track and baseball, and it's going to be completely nuts for the next couple of weeks. So, big question: what have you done for Mother's Day?
We'll talk about that later, man. I don't want to give away all the surprises, right?
Yeah, in other words, you just remember too. I just now told you.
No, I just remembered that I got to do something now. So thanks. Thanks for the reminder.
Well, what we're going to do is we'll hit on our high school stuff a little bit later in the program. But right now, look, we have a real life celebrity joining us this week. A longtime friend of the program, Coach. We've been talking about you for a couple of weeks for this thing. But we're joined by the brand new University of New Mexico men's basketball coach, Eric Olen. And Coach, like we talked about before we started this thing, you came here from San Diego and you brought all the miserable weather with you. So I think we can blame you for the snow, the hail, the rain, the dust storms. What gives, man? What's going on with that?
Yeah, no, I'm probably the only person who's fired up to have a little variation in the weather. You know, that San Diego weather gets boring, so I'm all about
sunshine and 80 degrees. That's terrible, Coach.
Yeah, get me out of there.
Yeah, you're. I think a lot of us when you got hired, thinking you're living within walking distance of Torrey Pines Golf Course. You're right within walking distance of the ocean. You're living in La Jolla, California. Why move to Albuquerque? Why did you lose a bet or something? Why'd you come here?
Oh man, I think the weather's overrated. Like this place, you know, we came for the basketball, you know, and this is certainly a high level basketball place that we're really excited about. And I think you guys aren't doing the weather here justice. You know, a couple days here and there. It's been really nice for the most part. So yeah, no regrets, no complaints. We're fired up to be here.
All right.
Well, I got to imagine too, man. Especially being an Alabama kid, you had a lot more excitement there than you ever did in San Diego, as far as the weather, at least.
Yeah, no hurricanes out here, so like that's nice. Yeah, no earthquakes. Yeah, I feel like we're upgrading.
There's no bugs either. You don't get a lot of bugs out here. You know, people see a cockroach and they call the exterminator. It's no big deal. But that's one thing. The good thing about New Mexico is, aside from it being dry and sunny all the time, you don't have a lot of bugs. So that's a good thing. Hey, look, you and I talked a little bit during your introductory press conference about what you're walking into. And a lot of news has been made recently about some programs like Baylor, Indiana. They both lost every single player off their roster. And that's exactly the situation you're coming into here. And look, a couple of years ago, New Mexico State, the school right down the road, they had a complete reset of their program. Theirs was for different reasons. They had a scandal and all that stuff. But it seemed like at the time, New Mexico State was an unprecedented thing. We would never see it again. And now you've got three major Division I programs that are going through that exact same thing. All new players, new coaching staff, that sort of thing. Is this kind of the new normal in college basketball where we can expect to see this amount of turnover from year to year?
You know, I don't know. I don't know if we've found a new normal yet. You know, it feels like a moving target. I don't think we'll be the last program to replace all the players or Baylor or any of them. Like, I think it'll continue to happen. I don't know that I do think it's kind of the extreme version, right? A couple programs a year kind of going through this sort of extreme overhaul where, you know, mostly, hopefully, you know, we'll be able to retain some percentage of our roster going forward. But yeah, every offseason has been a little bit different the last few years, and we sort of try to adapt and, you know, reframe everything each year and figure out how to build the best roster. And that's what we've been working on for the last, 5 weeks or so.
Hey, Coach, is there a comfort in knowing that you can kind of build this foundation from the ground up instead of having, because a lot of coaches, you kind of have to figure out what what personnel you want to keep as far as who's left over and who's going to be leaving and everything, and maybe and maybe having to talk with those kids. But in this situation, it seemed like starting fresh completely is probably ideal.
Yeah, I don't know if ideal is the way I would describe it, but it's I think it's manageable for sure. I think there's definitely some turnover, and I think there's pros and cons, right? There's pros and cons to being able to select each player and understand exactly what everyone's bringing to the table, and be able to make decisions based on other players on your roster versus just inheriting players and sort of trying to figure it out that way. But then there's challenges involved in also trying to add 15 players in one off season. So it depends on the day and probably how I feel about that question.
Yeah, there's about 350 Division I programs, and if you do the math, 14, 15 players per team, that's roughly 4,500 to 5,000 players. In the transfer portal, at last count, last time I saw, it was up to over 2,400 players who had their name in the portal. And then you throw in the JUCO guys, the lower level players, Division II, Division III, not to mention the high school recruits coming in. That's an enormous amount of turnover. Just talk about how the portal is. Just a few years ago when the portal opened, it came into existence in 2018. And then the first year for college basketball, there's roughly 900. We've tripled that in the short amount of time. Just talk about the influence the portal has had on people like you who have to build a roster every year.
Yeah, it kind of gives and it takes away. There's no absolute in any of this, right? Like there's just different variations. Every person is an individual and they're making their own decisions, and you just try to navigate the best you can on kind of a case by case basis and how we build our team. Like I said, hopefully it's not starting from zero every single time, and we'll be able to find a way to retain good players and lean into some development. I think that's a strength for our coaching staff in terms of kind of bringing guys back and having them improve and take steps. And so we don't want to lose that piece of the program. It's certainly something that we really value and want to continue to lean into. So that'll be an important aspect for us. And then the other part of that is just doing a good job in the evaluation. There's like you said, it's a really large pool of players, and so just trying to have a real plan for what we're looking for, how we want to build our roster, making good decisions, trying to do our homework and due diligence on each person. So it's a real time commitment anytime that you add anyone, and there's a lot of work that goes into each one. And so we just try to be diligent, try to make good decisions, and then ultimately trying to build the best team that we can via every avenue possible to us.
How wide of a net do you cast, especially when it comes to this recruiting part?
Extremely. It's like we're open to players from every level, every country, all over the world. There's no limit to it, right? Like so you go through the process, you recruit lots of guys, you don't get them all, and when each person makes a decision whether coming to our program or not coming to our program, it then kind of sets off a chain reaction of decisions of, okay, well, we have to find other options, or okay, now that piece is in place and we need to make decisions relative to having that person and what they bring and making sure that our skill sets are complementary and we're adding the right pieces around each person. So every time a decision is made, both in any direction, it sort of recalibrates the board a little bit, and you just sort of keep working through it. But there's players on our board from all the levels, and domestic and international, all over, East Coast, West Coast. Like it's certainly kind of broadened the horizons from that standpoint of just, and I'm sure there's players that we're missing, right? Like it's not reasonable for 6 of us to identify everyone, but that's also where you can, if you maybe find some underrated players or players that fit us that other people don't value. So, there's a lot that goes into it. It's a lot of work, but it's a big part. It's how you build your team, and I think each decision is really important, and we try to put a lot of thought into each one.
Yeah, I'm curious what the impact is on you, because not only are you trying to build a team from scratch, but you've got a wife and 2 kids. You're probably trying to sell a house. You're leaving a life that you lived for 21 years in the same, probably maybe the same neighborhood. and you got to hire a staff, which includes people who even work the front desk for you at the and you have to build a schedule for next year. There's a lot going on. Like, what has life been like for you since you first stepped foot in Albuquerque?
It's been busy. It's definitely been busy, and we've made some progress though. You know, we're getting close to a full staff. We're getting closer to a full roster. I'm spending a lot of nights in hotels and I take that direct Albuquerque to San Diego flight back and forth once a week and try to see my family as much as possible. A lot of time spent on FaceTime and trying to stay as connected to them as possible. We're trying to, find a place to live out here and close on a house and get, them, my daughter's finishing school and then them moving out. So yeah, it's been a wild few weeks, and some of it's been really enjoyable and fun. And there's this new challenge and we're building a new team. And then there's the family aspect. It probably certainly hasn't been my favorite month of my life from that standpoint, and just being away from them. And so I'm really looking forward to getting them out here and kind of being settled. I think that'll go a long way for all of us in sort of trying to get through this process.
The NIL has really kind of taken over college basketball. It's got to be part of every single conversation you have. And if you listen to enough of these talk shows during the day, they say NIL is working for college basketball because this year you only had 106 college players declare for the NBA draft, where it was over 3 times as many just a few years ago. So the argument is that NIL is working for college basketball, but maybe that's true, keeping some of the star players in the game itself. But is it really working for mid-major schools like UNM? Because look, in a lot of ways, schools like UNM and every school in the Mountain West, you're almost a feeder system. You're a AAA system to the power conferences, and a lot of the best players are going to get pilfered away or recruited away. Like, is the NIL beneficial to mid-major programs in that sense, where, gosh, you can come in, develop a young kid, maybe freshman, sophomore year, and if they do well, they're going to, a Big Ten school is going to come looking at them. How hard is it to deal with that?
Yeah, I think it's sort of, again, there's pros and cons, right? Like, I think the argument that college basketball is better because the overall talent is better and there's more good players in it. Like, I think that there is some fact-based information in that, right? Like, being able to retain great players in and of itself in a vacuum is good for college basketball. I think the question is, in my mind, is more about, is it good for the college basketball fan? Is it good for the fan experience, to have this amount of turnover? Are we going to lose the connection to the program? Not completely, but to some degree, when and if every year has a lot of turnover and players come and go more often. I think part of what makes college basketball special is having guys in a program for multiple years and the connection that they have to the school and to the community. And so I think if we lose too much of that with the turnover, then, maybe the pendulum has swung too far in that direction, and it could have an overall negative effect for college basketball. I also don't think we're really going to know the answer until we get a decade out, and then we look back and we say, like, oh yeah, that was good or that was bad, or, hindsight. So as we're in it on the day-to-day, it has become increasingly harder to project out, plan the development, and think long-term. I think that we're trying to do that, continue to do that to some degree, but we just understand that there has to be a level of flexibility built in, and we can't be sort of married to any path, because those things can change very quickly. So, I think it's forcing coaches and staffs to become more flexible, more creative, potentially create some ingenuity in that department. Like, so there could be value there, right? But yeah, like, I think we're going to look back and at some point and be like, oh, that was a wild period in college basketball. We'll figure out if it was good or bad from a holistic standpoint. But yeah, there's certainly some challenges to it. And I think you can kind of make your argument depending on whatever you want it to say, really.
Yeah. You have an interesting path to have gotten here. Like you went straight from college to working at UCSD, and you were there for quite a while. But when you look through your resume, you just look through the years that you built that program. Your final season at UCSD as a Division II program, was that a national championship level team? Because I know you're the 4 seed going into the tournament, which you never got to play because of COVID. But was that a championship level team that you thought, man, this is what all the building was for?
I mean, yeah, I'm biased, but yeah, like we've certainly felt like we had that kind of team. I mean, obviously, single elimination tournaments have variance, and there's no guarantees in that. I kind of think about it relative to other teams we had at Division II, because that was not our only really good team. So we had multiple Sweet 16 teams. We had been a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament in the past, and I can say with certainty that the last team we had was a couple orders of magnitude better than those previous teams. So, from that standpoint, given how those teams had fared and kind of understanding how much better we were, we could have lost in the first round, but yeah, we could have won the national championship. I'm pretty confident in that. Like that was a possible outcome for that group, and unfortunately, we'll never get to play that out. But that was a special team, and I've been fortunate to be part of a few of those, but that one was up there for sure.
That was you and San Diego State. San Diego State had such a good season that year too. It was a good year for basketball in the city of San Diego.
Yeah, and the one we lost was my fault. Like I'm so mad about it. I'll never get over the one we lost that year. And
you went 30 and you're blaming yourself.
Oh my God, we should have. We had a kid who was an All-American the year before who broke his foot, and the first game we played without him, we lost, and then we sort of figured it out from there. But there was a lot of change in our preparation because he was an important part, and we didn't quite get to cover it all, and the things we didn't cover kind of bit us in that one game, and that's again why we felt like we had a real chance to win the national championship, because we went 30-1, and that guy missed 20 plus games, and he was back and healthy, and we're getting an All-American back at the end on a 30-1 team, so we were in a pretty good place there going into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, gosh, and then you start the transition from Division II to Division I, which is never easy, and then you're having to do it during the COVID stuff. But just talk about the building process to go from. I don't think people really realize the step that it takes to go from D2 to D1. That's a chasm, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean the transition is difficult. Like it's long, it's really long. I think they've maybe changed the rule to shorten it a little bit, which is a really good rule. We obviously didn't benefit from it, but like 4 years is a punitive length of time for that. And so I'm glad they're shortening it. But it's really long. Yeah, the first year was COVID. There's just absolute chaos and almost kind of like we didn't even learn anything that year. So I kind of think about year 2 as we didn't play all the teams. We didn't, we played like half a season. So I think about year 2 as kind of our first year in the Big West, where we kind of played closer to a full round robin, and we got to, go to all the venues and kind of figure it out. Like I think, that experience will serve us well here in the Mountain West. Obviously, there's some familiarity, but until you've been on all the trips and played all the teams, like you really don't know the league the way you need to. So we'll learn a lot in the first year. Hopefully, we can do that while we're still playing good basketball. But so then. You kind of learn through a couple years, a couple iterations. The transition and not being eligible for the postseason makes recruiting extremely challenging. We all are looking for competitive guys who want to achieve at a high level and compete at a high level. And everybody, I think, that has that mindset is wired to compete in the NCAA, wanting to compete in the NCAA tournament in the postseason. And so not having that, I think, eliminates you from a lot of conversations in recruiting. And so, that part was a real challenge, but you could kind of feel it every year, right? All right, that's one less year that we're taking off. People were still thinking more than 1 year at a time at that stage. And so we could sort of project it. And then as we got into that last year of the transition, we were, we kind of took a little bit more of a long-term approach. Like we didn't take anybody that had 1 year. wanted to have as many returning players as possible. Obviously, some of the transfer portal NIL aspects didn't have that work out exactly to plan, but we were able to keep some key guys and kind of return them as we came out of the transition. But we kind of always had that last season, 24, 25, as a circled on our calendar of like, hey, we're building towards this. We're trying to win as many games as we can along the way. Every single night we're trying to win and put a good product on the floor. But we didn't want to lose sight of 24, 25 in that first year postseason. And so we kind of kept that in our mind as we made decisions along the way. And, we were fortunate to have a really good team as we got through the transition.
How nice was it for your plan to kind of play out the way it did? I mean, you guys were the talk that whole first week of kind of being the Cinderella team that everybody had projected in their brackets and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I would have liked a little less attention there, so maybe we could have snuck up on somebody or something. But no, it was kind of storybook from that. Like, it couldn't have written it better. The guys that came back to play together, to have the kind of season that we wanted to have, it was like kind of like that was the whole reason they all stayed and wanted to try to do something special as a kind of a collective group. And then, we were able to add the right pieces that fit. And it's kind of what we're all trying to do every time out now. And how we build the roster is, guys find and identify players who fit what you're doing, who buy into what you're doing, and really still value, the team aspect and putting team success first. Tell everybody that was easily the most unselfish team I've ever been a part of, and they won all the award. Like, they got all the individual accolades through like the selflessness. I think we had the player of the year, 2 first-team all-league guys, a second-team all-league guy, defensive player of the year, 6th man of the year. There's like Big West has like a hustle award to recognize guys who just affect winning, but maybe don't show up in the stat sheet. We got that one. Like, it was just everything kind of came together for them individually because all they cared about was winning as a team. So I thought that was a cool lesson for us to really see it play out that way. Like, if you can get them to be like that level of unselfishness and really just pour into each other, like it's amazing kind of how it comes back full circle to you as an individual.
And walk us through when Fern Lobo and his people first contacted you. What was that process like? Like, what was the sales pitch for UNM to get you to leave San Diego to come here? Because this is not probably the easiest job in the world, in the sense that there's a lot of expectations. You're in a fishbowl here. Fans want to win. And you're playing in a building where the history almost supersedes the actual level of the team. But look, they have the resources to win here, and they've proven that they can win at this school. But what was the recruiting pitch like from Fern and his guys to get you to come out here?
Yeah, so like it's the other way. Like, I felt like I was recruiting them as soon as Coach Pitino made that decision. I was hoping for a call, asking, talking to my agent about, can we get involved there? Like that. I mean, this was a place that, I certainly had on my radar even before Coach Pitino made the decision to leave. So, I felt like it was me selling Fern on me being the right fit and me wanting to be here. And, I think the recruitment went the other way because of all the reasons you just said. Like, I don't view those as negatives. Like, the expectations are exciting. Like, I want to be at a place that has expectations. Like, no one's ever going to have higher expectations for what we're doing than I am. So I love it. Like, everybody in college basketball is trying to create the kind of passion and enthusiasm that we have here, right? Like, the expectations are why you get 15,000 in the building. It's why it's one of the best home environments in the country. It's why there's been success. Like, and it's not just like one coach has had success here. There's been a lot of people who have come here and had success. So it's not about the coach, or it's about the place and the program and the community. And so, like, yeah, like it was they didn't have to recruit me. I was sold from the start. It was the other way around. And yeah, I'm really fortunate to be sitting in this chair now and the way things have worked out.
I've never met a Lobo coach that didn't have anything nice to say about UNM even after they left. Every year Steve Alford comes back, and you can ask him about X's and O's, but you ask him about the building, and he'll go on for 10 minutes, which is great because he loves it here. I know Coach Pitino loved it here, but the expectation of walking down that ramp for your first game where people are going to be, they're going to be ready for you. They're going to want to see this team. They're going to be ready to welcome you into Albuquerque. What have people told you about what it's like to walk down the ramp and you hear the band and the fans and all that?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's talking about it, and like, I'm excited. I'm excited to hear about it, but I know that like no one can do it justice, right? And so like until you walk in and have the experience, then it's really hard to speculate on it, you know. And I am excited about it. I think everybody's looking forward to that first game, and just the energy and excitement that hopefully will be in the building. But yeah, I don't know that anybody can really describe it. You know, I think it's something we're going to have to experience firsthand, and we're certainly looking forward to do that.
Are you going to be a red blazer guy? Or are you going to be the 3/4 zip, the pullover thing? That
pullovers. No, you know, we're not going to weddings or funerals here. It's basketball games, and like we're gonna keep it pretty casual.
Yeah, I like it. Coach, let's talk about some of your players. I know that it's not a full roster yet, and I believe there's 7 players listed on the UNM website, but there's 9 if you count. There's 9 players that are actually either committed or signed right now. Everyone's going to talk about the big guys. Chol, one of the kid from Garden City, and then the 7'1" player, TJ Rock from Iowa State. Just talk about the players you brought in and just kind of go from there. What each one brings to the table.
Yeah, we're putting a good team together. All the guys that we've added to this point, we feel like you know, bring different strengths and weaknesses. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head who's like signed and I'm allowed to talk about specifically and that kind of stuff. It's a little convoluted for me right now. I probably need a list, but I know Antonio Chol from Garden City is junior college is one of those guys. We think he's got really high upside. Guy who can really shoot the basketball with great size and versatility defensively. JT Rock, who you mentioned, 7'1", coming from Iowa State, top 100 player out of high school. I think like his best basketball is ahead of him. You know, I think our system and the way that we really value skill level in the front court is I think pretty ideal for him. And although he hasn't had much opportunity on the court, we think he's a pretty good player. And you know, there's a lot of guys who at his age, right? He reclassed. He went to college at 17 and is practicing in the Big 12 like that. There aren't a lot of 17-year-olds who are going to go and have a ton of success in that environment. But I think it's made him better. I think he's hopefully ready to make a jump and hopefully create a role for us. You know, Chris Howell is a guy who's coming with us from UC San Diego, super familiar with how we play. Like Chris is a guy who makes everybody better, unbelievable teammate, fantastic defensive player. He's one of the best passers I've ever been around. So, you know, I think he's a guy who, with his experience level and understanding of the game, is going to help some of these new guys really execute at a high level. We're going to count on him to really sort of be like coach on the floor and just help our overall execution. We've added some other experienced players. Luke Hopp is a Division II player that we think can make the jump and help us and make an impact. We've had some success with Division II guys moving up and playing good basketball for us at the Division I level in the past. So we think Luke is another guy who could do that. I'm trying to think. Kevin and Kalai Patton, really talented, athletic guys who have huge upside, you know, and if we can help them kind of understand how their game fits within our scheme and what their spot, what spots they're trying to get to, how to be efficient on offense. I think they have, you know, the kind of defensive playmaking that everybody's looking for with size and length and athleticism at the positions. So we tried to add a lot of positional length and size. Outside of JT, we don't have a lot of traditional size in the center position, but we're trying to, you know, really add length, athleticism. We value perimeter players and guards that rebound the ball, so that gives us a path to play a little smaller at times. So, you know, those are some of the things that we're really looking to add in different spots. We got a couple high school guys that we think are super talented in Jake Hall and Uriah Tenet. I mean, those guys scored 1 million points in high school, and they've been scoring efficiently. I mean, they're just kind of wired to do that. We expect that to continue. even at this level. I think some of their challenges will be more on the defensive end and understanding scheme and the level of physicality required to play at this level. But I think offensively they're pretty well equipped to make some plays, and so we're excited to see where they can get to in a short amount of time. I think with so many new players, like a lot of it will come down to like their ability to like process information and get up to speed and understand how we want to play. And the sooner they can do that, the better. But it's sometimes a challenge with new players and having so many. I'm confident that the way we look in February will be much different than the way we look in November, and we'll just kind of take the approach of getting better every day and see what kind of product we can put out on the floor.
And how about the schedule? I know some games have been announced, but I would imagine one of the difficulties in building a schedule is the fact that you're not going to get a lot of the name brand teams to come to Albuquerque. So is it more neutral site games and the directional school type things they're going to be playing at home in the early part of the month? Like how's the schedule shaping up?
Yeah, that's a work in progress. We inherited a couple good events, and the schedule is not in a terrible place from that standpoint. So we had a couple things in place. Obviously, the NTE, the Hall of Fame and event in Kansas City is exciting in terms of those opponents. We got to return to VCU, who we expect to have another great team. Return game to New Mexico State. So those are kind of in place. So we'll be adding some home games to that schedule, and so we're just kind of going through that process now, talking to different opponents that make sense for us. Dates, scheduling is always a real challenge. There's so many moving parts and variables to it that it takes a little while. And the Mountain West releases their schedule pretty late anyway. So while we're not ahead of it from that standpoint, I don't think we're as far behind as it feels a little bit, and we'll get some things figured out. But schedule is definitely a work in progress. Adding coaching staff and building the roster, we've made a lot of progress on that, and there's some other things around the program that we certainly need to address, scheduling being one of them, that as we're starting to fill things out, we're able to start to shift some focus towards, and I think we'll make some real progress in the coming weeks in a lot of those areas, and scheduling being one of them.
I have kind of an offbeat question for you. How many people have told you that Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul were actually documentaries of Albuquerque and not actual TV shows? Have you heard any of that?
No documentary, but specifically when we talk to some of the international players, that when we ask them if they know anything about New Mexico, like Breaking Bad is towards the top of the list for the guys who maybe from the other countries and things like that.
That should be part of the recruiting tour. Take him to Walter White's house and show him where the pizza was on the garage and things like that. You got to do that. He's like, here's the pit, here's what our uniforms are going to look like, and here's where Walter White worked and lived. So you got to do that.
We'll add that to the itinerary.
I can, let me ask you too. I think I asked you at your introductory press conference, but as far as there's a lot of schools that are hiring general managers. Are you the general manager, or do you leave that up to Kurt Roth, or how's that process? Because I would imagine every single recruiting conversation you have, it's inevitable that money's going to come up. So who's actually running that part of it? Is that you, or is that Kurt, or who is it?
That's all handled within our staff. Obviously Kurt's been a big supporter of what's happening, and he'll remain involved, in that role. But, we're kind of doing that within our staff. And there are some things structurally that we still need to get in place. Like it's been a little bit of a shotgun approach for us in terms of the recruiting and the way that we're working and we're adding staff. And so people are just kind of jumping in and getting started. And it's been a little bit of a scramble here. So there are still some kind of role definition and responsibilities to assign on a much more organized and structured way that we're still working through, and we haven't had the chance because it's just been like, let's hit the ground running. We got to build this thing. And so it's been a little bit of a shotgun approach that we'll sort of narrow down and define in the future, where I'll be able to answer that question a little better.
Yeah. What's your favorite restaurant? Have you picked one? And don't say Whataburger. Don't do that. Don't go there.
I went to a really nice restaurant when my wife was out here. I'm the name is blanking. Is it was in Old Town. I want to say in Antiquity. That was really good. But yeah, there've been plenty, and yeah, it's been fun to explore kind of Albuquerque and restaurants, and yeah, I'm still learning. Honestly, a lot of nights I don't even get out of here in time to go to a restaurant. But
I was going to say, like, are you still anonymous to a certain degree where you can walk into a place and people have no idea who you are? Is it still like that?
It's hit or miss. It's hit or miss. Sometimes people will recognize me and stop me, and other times, yeah, it's clear they have no idea who I am.
Yeah, just wait till next December. Everyone's going to know who you are. You're not going to be able to go to the grocery store. You go to the gas station, people will be stopping to talk to you about what's the deal with your zone defense? What's going on with that? It's going to happen.
I love it. I mean, that's again, like that's what we talked about at the beginning. Like the people, you want people to care. I mean, I'm sure there's some aspects of it where it's less convenient, but overall, I'm really fired up to be at a place that has that kind of passion and interest in the program, and yeah, no, I feel fortunate.
Yeah, you've definitely walked into that situation because people love their basketball, including the Mrs. Weber. She's the biggest Lobo basketball fan I've ever met. And it's interesting because the way the season ended last year, look, they're basically in line to beat Michigan State if their center doesn't get in foul trouble. They wind up losing that game within 48 hours. Your point guard's going to UCLA. You're losing another guard to Miami, and the coach is off to the Big East. It was just like this weird thing of the season's over, and instead of having a mourning period, you're just lamenting like who threw a grenade onto this program and blew it up. But that's just the nature we live in. It's crazy. So now,
yeah, I think that's one thing that I don't love about this whole landscape is just like you don't get the opportunity to kind of catch your breath and celebrate the group that just we didn't really have that opportunity either at UC San Diego. We had this special season with this amazing group of people, and everybody enjoyed it and had a great time. And it would have been nice to kind of celebrate that and spend, but you don't really get that closure, kind of the same way. And it's just the chaos of the coach left and the players are leaving. And so I wish there was a better way to kind of wrap things up and kind of appreciate what just happened, but there's no time for it right now. And so hopefully we can figure out a better way to do that because, some of these, the seasons that they had here and the one we had in San Diego last year, like you'd love the opportunity to celebrate that with the people who accomplished it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all I can do is hit up Jeff Bezos since he's officially from Albuquerque. You could say, hey, come on, Jeff, you got a couple extra $1 million you could throw at me. That'd be great.
Yeah, I gotta get lunch with Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, see if you can track down his email and take him out to the frontier, get him a sweet roll or something. Do that. But Coach, it's really good to finally have you on the show. I know I drew a cartoon caricature of you a couple weeks ago when it canceled at the last second, and last week we did the same thing. So it's nice to have the real person on here. And just,
sorry, the schedules have been so crazy and trying to get back and forth and all that. I know it was hard to get this together, but I appreciate you guys having me on. I really enjoyed it.
No, it's
great.
Thanks, Coach, and congratulations and welcome to New Mexico.
Yeah, welcome back. Welcome here.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thanks.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll come right back. We'll talk about a little bit of high school sports to wrap this thing up. But James, that's all you, buddy, because you're the high school guy. So
yeah, I know. I got tired of sitting around here like a bump on a log, like AJ Hawk in the Pat McAfee show.
I can't wait for you to answer a question like, James, am I going to have to carry this?
You're on a roll, man. I was gonna let you enjoy the moment. I didn't have much of anything else anyway. I got my few questions in.
Like, Coach, what's your favorite color and why? Like, I don't know what to ask him anymore. Come on, we're out of stuff. All right,
stuff, man. You carried that conversation. Come on.
All right, we'll take a break. We'll come right back and wrap this thing up. All right, we're in the home stretch. It is May, James. Man, it's just a sprint to the finish line. The next couple of weeks are going to be fun and chaotic, and who knows what's going to happen. But look, softball, tennis starts Wednesday. We're recording this on Tuesday, so this is the calm before the storm. Then we got track. I know you are a track and field guy. In fact, anyone who reads the New Mexican knows that I don't really go to track because James covers all the track and field while I cover baseball.
I hoard that like it's my child.
and that is great. It's great for me because track and field means two things: unrelenting sunlight and just being out there you're just getting sun blasted and wind blasted all day. So
Dude, you're not a vampire. Come on, man. You can handle it.
You can. I tell you what. You text me updates while I'm sitting in the dugout at baseball. Let's do that.
Oh yeah, you're gonna really enjoy my updates, man. You're just gonna be like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Hey, girl.
Meanwhile, you're sitting there just like with mustard drooling down your cheek and everything.
And that's perfect for me. That's great. But like softball, they underwent a massive change in terms of like the first couple of rounds of how it goes. Usually they throw them all at Cleveland High School and Rio Rancho High School, and it's like this giant free fall. Now it's all different.
Yeah, it's totally different. Even the finishing venue, I believe they go to Los Altos now. So
yeah,
that's going to be a little different.
Yeah, I've not been to Los Altos since they finished remodeling it. But if the parking situation is anything like the West Side Complex in Albuquerque, you better leave now because it is terrible.
Yeah, I know, man. I know. That's going to be fun, isn't it?
Yeah, and then of course state tennis starts tomorrow, the individual singles and doubles, and that's our intern Henry Kaufman from Santa Fe Prep, who's probably the best singles player in the state regardless of classification. He should win the small school singles title. But look, I know you're working on a story about Santa Fe High's girls doubles team.
Yes. Well, something like that. Well, I mean the Valentino sisters. Yeah, I know. I wasn't expecting you to give away everything that I was going to be doing, but all right. No, but I mean that'll be one part of the story there. We'll talk about the Valentino sisters, who are the only individual players from in 5A that will be playing in the first 2 days. Now, Santa Fe High's girls team will be playing in the team championships on Friday and Saturday, and they barely made it in. The way it looked, I think they ended up being the 10th out of 12 seeds. They'll play Rio Rancho in the first round with a chance to play Farmington in the quarters, but they've got a heck of a mountain to climb there. This is a team that everybody thought had the potential to be a top 2, top 3 team, and kind of struggled a little bit during the district season. At one point, I think they were 0-2 and tied with Capital for dead last in their district, and they had to rally. Won 3 straight, managed to force a 3-way tie for second, and managed to sneak into the tournament and everything. So it'll be that'll be interesting to see. But I think 4A, at least for northern New Mexico, will have more of a rooting interest in that, because you'll have, obviously, like you said, we'll have Kaufman, and then Robertson has Fulgenzi girl in the doubles side.
No, Robertson has a Fulgenzi.
Yeah, of course not. Yeah, it wouldn't be a Robertson team without a Fulgenzi, right? And then it was interesting because looking at I think it was the boys' side. I was looking at the team bracket, and they had Los Alamos, I believe it was Los Alamos, or Santa Fe, no, Los Alamos, Taos, and Espanola go 2, 3, 4 in the in the rankings there. So it looks like there's a pretty good shot that northern New Mexico should get a team, at least on the boys' side, or maybe the girls' side. I'm thinking of where we would get a team into the finals there.
Well, then state track and field this weekend for the 1A, 2A, 3A. And you talk about small school track, you got to start and almost end every conversation with the influence St. Mike's has on that thing. I mean, they've built a dynasty on both sides. What's that look like this year?
Well, it should be more of the same. It's kind of interesting because, with ATC moving up to 3A, suddenly like 2A kind of falls off the radar screen for us. They had, ATC had become one of the top 2 or 3 programs in AA for like the last 3 or 4 years. I think they finished second one year, won a state title twice, and now they're up at the 3A level. So 3A is really where all the talent is in northern New Mexico. And yeah, I mean, again, it's probably going to be St. Mike's boys and girls again. That'll probably repeat. I think the boys side might be a little bit more challenging, just because I think West Las Vegas has an opportunity to compete with them, but we know how that goes, man. I mean, when you don't have the depth like St. Mike's does, and you screw up like either a relay event, or you have a kid that false starts in some individual event that you're expecting to finish high, there's very little wiggle room for the rest of the teams in 3A to be able to overcome that. St. Mike's, they can do that, and I think that's part of their strength is just their depth and their all around versatility. I mean, the funny thing is this year, I think on the girls' side, they're stronger in the field events than they are in the relays than they are in the individual events in terms of in terms of running. And the boys, they're just the boys, man. They should probably win, and they should probably win fairly convincingly, just because they've got a little bit of everything in just about every level. So it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I kind of figure the talk will be centered around the St. Mike's
Yeah.
boys and girls on both sides. For bringing back a fifth straight state title.
Yeah, the secret in track is dominate the relays and just bury people with your depth. You don't necessarily have to win every race; just pile points in every event. That's all you do.
Yeah, and that will definitely be the case here.
And then state baseball, the first round start this weekend. I did a story last weekend about how really Class 3A. It's only a 12-team bracket. That means the top 4 teams in 3A and 2A both get buys into the quarterfinals, and that's usually a kiss of death. St. Mike's and Robertson both have buys in 3A, so it's not going to be easy for either one of those teams.
4 years in a row that St. Mike's could potentially get knocked out in the quarters.
Yeah, St. Mike's has not won a playoff game since before the pandemic.
Yeah,
they have to go back to 2019 when they won their opening round series to get the semifinals, but they have not won since they've done the bye system. So really, I remember when I was a kid, DePaul's basketball team was always a team that was really good every year, and they would flame out
in the first or second round, right?
The modern day version of DePaul basketball. Now that shows you a little bit how old I am. My gosh. So we'll see how that goes. Like Robertson is another one. Like I know Robertson's had its issues in the past too. Like some training stuff. Like that one year they had the fire in Las Vegas.
Yeah, 2 years ago in 22. Yeah, and they lost to East Mountain, I think, in the quarterfinals because they didn't get. I think Leroy Gonzalez, the baseball coach there, said I think they had maybe 2 or 3 practices over the last 2 weeks of the season.
And he was not happy after that game. I've seen Leroy a lot, and he was not happy at all about that whole situation. But it's funny mentioning Leroy. I had a little text exchange with him this morning. I just wanted to check on his health. He's one of our favorite coaches. He's been through
he is.
But he will be with that team throughout the state baseball tournament, which is good to hear. Yeah, he's a good guy. I know. Look, if you coach anywhere long enough, you're going to have your detractors. You're going to have people that are just out to get you, and he's certainly got his people that are coming after him. But he's always been fair with us, and that's the best thing we could say about him. So, and the guys,
absolutely, so it's that's good to hear. That Leroy will be. We'll see a little bit of him over the next 5 or 6 days and everything, and then tomorrow. I mean, that's going to be interesting. At least in Albuquerque, the weather will be halfway decent, but up north, it's going to be a mess. And there's a good possibility that we see some of these first round games get pushed to Thursday, perhaps, just because of the way the weather is. They're expecting intermittent rain and thunderstorms throughout the day, so that's really going to put a dent in some things. And the interesting thing for tomorrow is that West Las Vegas, their softball team will be playing under the lights for the first time, I think, in program history, and that was the way they wanted it. They set up their 2 games with the first round game starting at 4, and then they'll come back and play at 6:30 under the lights. And Coach Julie Esquivel was really excited about that, and I think the girls are really looking forward to being able to play a night game, which is something which is really a rarity in softball for sure.
Yeah, I had a chance to see West Las Vegas's facility last week when I was up there for a baseball game, and they put their money where their mouth is. That is a nice setup that they have for baseball and softball. The only thing about softball is there's no batter's eye. You're looking right into a chain link fence. So playing a day game, you're getting all that glare off that chain link fence. But
that's got to be brutal, man. There's probably no way to be able to pick up the ball very well.
Yeah,
in that situation.
In that field where they built the softball and baseball fields, it used to be a goat head field. Man, you just walk through there, and because the football team,
I know, and now it's nice, man. I mean, the upgrade has just been impressive.
Yeah, so it good for West Las Vegas that they actually have that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Of course, people always forget that it's 2 separate school districts. So, West Las Vegas has it. How come Robertson doesn't have it? Well, go talk to Robertson.
Exactly. And speaking of which, I think the big game tomorrow, hopefully, or I should say Wednesday, because obviously we're doing this today. Tuesday. But we could potentially see a St. Mike's Robertson matchup in that quarterfinal round at St. Michael's, and the teams. St. Mike's took 2 out of 3, but last Thursday they played a doubleheader and they split, and both of them were 2-run games. So I fully expect that to be a very tight game, and I wouldn't be surprised if Robertson pulls off the upset and St. Mike's has to go through the consolation bracket to have a shot at maybe playing for the state title.
That sounds like a really good feel-good story because Robertson and St. Mike's never play each other. It seems like
they never do. It's a rarity whenever you see them play in the postseason.
Those two schools hate each other's guts, and red and blue. It's everything about those two schools is the complete.
And it's weird because like on the boys' side, you can definitely feel the intensity, but on the girls, not so much, man.
Yeah. Well, the boys, they all grow up playing all 3 the major sports track against one another. So it's like there's a lifelong feud between them. So, yeah, the baseball stuff will be fun. The big school track next week will be fun.
Yeah.
In between now and then, we got golf on Monday and Tuesday, which is in the Four Corners.
Oh, that's going to be great, man.
It's never great for us because that's a long.
Especially now that they're because both tournaments are going to be up in Farmington, right?
Yeah, they're all of them. Yeah, they're going to be up in Farmington, and St. Mike's boys are supposed to be pretty good. So, yeah, that'll be interesting. Spending that time on the road, but look, it's a fun time of year. It's a busy time of year for us. And there's a lot going on. And then, of course, here we are doing this thing on Tuesday. I just found out that Tuesday morning, Highlands fired its athletic director. So, which I just had a huge story on their baseball team running Tuesday's paper. I thought maybe I got the baseball coach fired. The New Mexican Jinx got the baseball guy fired. But as far as
somebody at some point.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, he is still employed. So it's not my fault if he got chased out. It was the athletic director. I worked in reverse. I got the AD fired instead.
Yeah, it did. Well, I've already gotten the "You're not welcome here" speech from St. Michael's softball coach Maria Cedillo. So obviously we're not going to be allowed in on at St. Mike's on Wednesday.
Well, and the umpires don't like us there either. They keep throwing our photographers out. So
no, I know, man. We're such rebels, man.
Our photographers show up, and the umpires are already like, "Get out of here! I don't need you and your attitude and your big $5,000 lens.
That's right,
troublemaker."
Yeah, and take your reporter with you, man. He's not that much better anyway.
He's standing over there like he knows what he's doing. Get him out of here too. Oh man, so it's going to be fun. The next few weeks are going to be interesting, and then I guarantee you, by the time we get down to the end of May, after we've written all our Athlete of the Year stories, you and I are going to be looking at each other like, now what do we do?
Yeah, I know.
I guess we better go cover the Fuego. We're going to start having Fuego guys on our podcast just to get through the summer. So
great. We could bring we could just bring the mascot on.
Yeah, I think it's Pepper is the name of the mascot.
Is that what his name is now?
Well, they had the Zozobra one last year. I'm sure its name was Zozobra.
Probably.
But neither one of them talk, so they could just come sit next to us and just nod their giant puppet heads.
There you go. Yeah. You're doing a good impersonation of me during most of your talk with Olen.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Well, that'll about wrap it up. I think this might have been our longest podcast ever. We're closing in on an hour, I think. So
yeah, well, that's how good we are.
Yeah. I want to thank Eric Olen for finally coming on. And every week, I'm still going to show this picture of him, the one that I printed last week when I didn't have any ink in.
Yes, the vampire photo. Yeah.
We're still going to have Eric on the show at some point every single week from here on out for the rest of time because he is a friend of the program.
Yes, he is. An official one now.
Yeah. So we will see you middle of next week. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. And yes. James, get after it. Go do something nice for your mom. And that includes Show Killer, too.
That's right.
That's going to have to do something nice for his mother. So
yeah, even if she lives in the Midwest still.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we will see you next week. And good luck at state tournament for all the athletes out there.
Yes, that's true.